All right, so what is up, guys? Welcome to our 7th episode of Los Revs podcast. So we have here a new invitee, which is Pastor Wally, Youth Pastor Wally from CCBR, right?
Barrios.
Pastor Barrios. Wally Barrios?
Wally Barrios.
All right, Wally Barrios. Do you have like a middle name?
No, I don't have a middle name. My first name is
How do you feel
actually,
not having a middle name?
Yeah, I was about to ask.
So my real name is my real government name is Walter.
Now I see why you called yourself
But
Wally.
What about your legal name? Nah, I'm kidding.
Walter Barrios. But it was like, since I grew up, they've always called me Wally. So I've always stuck with it. And when I was a kid, I wanted to change my name. So as soon as they started calling me Wally, I'm like, nah, we're going with Wally. So wherever.
So we keeping it with Wally?
Yeah, we're keeping it with Wally. Even when I have my own church, like I'm gonna be Pastor Wally.
Pastor Wally.
It's like,
like it.
Walter just sounds too old.
Formal?
Like, Walter, like
Old school?
old school.
Well,
like,
whenever he prayed, he said Wallace.
I know. I was like,
I was like, wait, how does he know?
somebody else is coming out.
But you're the
But you're
youth
Wallace.
pastor or co-pastor?
So the way we have it at our church is our senior pastor, and then I'm one of the associate pastors. But I'm also considered like the youth pastor for some people. It just depends on how they see me. Some people see me as co-pastor. Some people see me as youth pastor. Some people don't see me as pastor. So it's just pretty much in that way. The way you want to see me is the way I am. So like if I'm just Wally, I could be the parking attendant guy, or I could be Pastor Wally or youth pastor. So people just call me Pastor Wally or P Wally. That's how.
P. Wally.
Well, that's what they were saying. No, P. Wally, P. Wally.
Yeah, we're probably like, well, who's that? But yeah, that's what they started
Peanut
calling
butter
me.
Wally?
After Real Love, they started calling me P. Wally, so it's just been like that.
Poppy Wally?
No. Okay, yeah.
That's a good one.
Champagne Wally. Hey.
Oh, man.
Okay, so you know how this month, it's the month of, well, it's really Black History Month, but I want to include something with Valentine's, right? Something about love.
What's that?
Huh? Valentine's? Oh, we don't want to. No, we don't want to go there. Huh? So when I say that, there's a huge theme that I want to put out for this podcast, which is relationship over religion.
Right.
And so I want to ask you, P. Wally. So I want to ask you, what do you think about that? Whenever we gave you the subject, what's right off your mind? What did you want to bring out to us? Like, what do you want to bring out to the people? Like, relationship over religion. Like, what do you want to bring out?
Man, the moment that I got the message, I was like, I just thought about the woman at the well. Like how, she was she had a lot of husbands. Back in the day, she had a lot of husbands. So that was my first thing. I was like, man, I'm like, this is perfect because, working with young people,
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people leave churches. Because there's so many religions and there's so many rules. So rules start becoming religion. So when I heard about it, when you guys gave me the subject, I'm like, man, I'm pretty much out there. Like I break the boundaries of what a pastor's supposed to do and what he's supposed to be like. Like, because my biggest thing is, how am I going to build a relationship with this person? If the first thing I see Martin, I tell him, hey, these are the rules, follow them. They're going to be like, well, who are you? Like, how are you going to tell me what to do if I don't even know who you are? So it's like, first I want them to know me as P. Wally or just Wally, and then just kind of start building off of that. Because if you look at the story at the well, that encounter that she had with Jesus changed her life. So imagine if you would have went up there, hey, you know what? These are the rules that you were supposed to follow. You didn't follow them. Like, one, he broke every kind of rule by even being there. He wasn't supposed to be there. But, that's how God is. He's kind of one of those, like, you're not supposed to be there, but you're there. So that's what happened whenever I got the subject. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is perfect for young people. Because a lot of young people leave churches once they hit 18 because there's so many churches that are full of rules and they don't have a relationship with the pastor. They don't have a relationship with the youth pastor. So their biggest thing is, I don't feel part of anything, so why even be at church?
I thought you were going to say something.
I was like, I think I'm fired. I don't think they like my answer.
Well, if nobody's going to say, let me do the talking.
Go ahead. No, because Martin said, and then I was like.
No, I think he was going to say something. As you know, like, we all agree with you, like, with that point of view. And I think that there's a lot of issues in, like, different, like, a lot of, like, I don't want to say churches, but like different places when there's like a lot of like rules said and you have to follow these rules to be considered a Christian or something. And there's this book, I I don't know if you like
Or
reading books.
relationship or religion? Or
No, it's called Mere Christianity. It was written by this guy C.S. Lewis. I think everybody
C.S.
knows that
Lewis,
guy. Okay, so in that book, like he says that we have some kind of a framework. Like, okay, these are the rules, like in Christianity, that everyone should follow to be considered a Christian. Like, okay, the Bible is the Word of God. God, the Holy Trinity. Jesus was human, but at the same time, he was God. So those are like our boundaries. Anything inside, it doesn't really matter. And I see that there's a lot of like disagreement between churches. Like this, you should have benches instead of chairs. The color of the carpet should be this way. You have to look like traditional instead of this. And I'm just like, that doesn't really matter. Like, it's just like, you might not agree with that person, but just because you don't agree with that person doesn't mean that you're a bad Christian.
Yeah. So with that, like, I go back to we went to a church to visit. I'm not gonna say the name of the church.
Say,
I'm
I'm
not.
kidding.
But it was like,
it here in Houston?
yeah, I was here in Houston.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, at our church when we have youth stuff, like, it's okay for us to wear hats. So
okay.
it's one of those, like, it was cool. Like, so we walked in wearing hats. Because that's, we're just...
Right.
Hey, they burn them. They burn
and they told, hey, could you take off your hats? So it was like, for me, if I wasn't a Christian, like, I could have took it the wrong way, because it's like, well, how do you know who I am? But then after a while, I looked at my guys and I'm like, hey, this is their rules. Let's just follow them. So I'm one of those, I also honor the rules of the house. Like, if my dad tells me, he's our senior pastor, if he tells me, hey, I don't want you to do this, I'm okay with it. But, but it's also that way of, okay, let's meet in the middle. And I feel like as a generation, it's like we have to start meeting in the middle, because then if not, religion takes over everything. And people don't want to go to church because they're like, man, they're so full of rules. And a lot of the rules start becoming religion. Instead of, because there's a lot of type of religions. Like people, there's a lot of type of religions. But then rules, you start setting rules, and then you start making sure, like, hey, you have to follow them. If not, you're not part of this church. Or you have to follow them and you're not going to get to heaven. And we kind of like brainwash people to start thinking these are the set rules. Like, that's how you have to do it. And it's one of those subjects to where it's scary, because it's like, for some people, you're like, hey, but you're a pastor, so you're supposed to think about the rules and stuff. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but if I think about the rules, like, how am I going to get a relationship with Rudy? If the first thing I see him is, hey, you know what, those ripped jeans aren't going to work, boy. And then it's like, and I'm one of those, like, there was one time, and this is where I'm very uncensored. My own pastor, which is my dad, he told me, hey, I need you to dress with a tie. I need you to wear a tie. And I looked at him, and I almost lost it when he told me that. I was like, man, I'm going to leave. I'm going to quit. But then I looked at him, and I looked at my mom, and I'm like, if you guys change who I am, my style of preaching, then you're not going to get the real me. I'm like, I preach with jean jackets, Chelsea boots, sometimes ripped jeans. I also understand that there has to be that level of respect. Like, there's people that come in and they see somebody wearing ripped jeans, like, they get scared. So, like, I tell my guys, hey, if we're going to wear jeans, like, don't have them ripped, because sometimes they start ripped off here, and then it's like, then their whole knees showing. Oh, yeah. And then sometimes they don't put on lotion, so it's like, it's all sandy, and you can see everything. Yeah. So it was like, whenever he told me that, I was hairs. Like me, look, if you're watching, I have hair. So it was like the first thing when I bought these pair of jeans, one of my leaders at church was like, P. Wally, you better put on lotion on your legs, because nobody wants to. And I was like, man. But then, going back to whenever my pastor told me, I want you to wear a tie, I told him, I said,
what type of tie?
It had to be a skinny tie. I told him.
Oh,
nah, not a bow tie. So I told him,
imagine one of like the fat ties.
Can you buy it for me?
I should have told him, my dad, can you buy it for me?
No, but the fat ties are ugly. Like, the skinny ones look good at least.
And I used to wear ties.
I'm not a bow tie guy.
I'm not against wearing a tie, but it's like, how am I gonna connect with somebody that comes in, from the streets or from the area, and they see a pastor wearing like a suit and tie? Like, the first thing that they're gonna think about is, man, like, I can't be myself. And it's like, like the way you're dressed right now, people don't, if you preach with the jersey, some people will have a heart attack. Like, oh my Lord, que falta de respeto. And it's kind of one of those, like, yeah, but where in the Bible does it say that I can't wear Chelsea boots, or I can't wear a jean jacket? I have to wear this. And I told him, I said, hey, if you want me to help you preach, I said, it's your rules. I'm like, but I'm just expressing how I feel. Because I'm like, I don't want to take it inside of me and build it up. I'm like, I wear, this is how I feel comfortable. I'm like, I know I gained a little bit of weight, so maybe that's why I don't want to wear a tie because I feel like I'm choking. But I'm like, but I feel like I could be more of who I am. I use a lot of illustrations when I preach. Like I climb ladders, tables. So wearing a tie and wearing a suit would kind of make, it would kind of change who my identity is. So like identity always goes with the religious people and religion people and relationship to where like, so yeah, I'm big on that, man.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. Like, for example, if someone invites me to like a church, and they tell me, hey, you need to like follow the dress code, I'll follow it. Like I respect, because it's like I'm going to your house, I'm going to your place. But when they tell me like, oh, you need to dress like that all the time, I'm like, I don't. It's not that I want to go against the rules. It's more like I just don't feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think because of the same reason, like when I'm getting like a little bit of weight, so it's hard for me to like ties and then a jacket. I'm like, oh, I can move. I feel like a robot.
Well, now that you talk about more weight, we're gonna have more food, so you can add more weight.
We just talked about weight. And
look, we're getting blessed by God.
Oh, okay, all right.
God has answered.
Yeah. Well, I just bought a treadmill, so I might use it after.
Oh, don't need at the mic.
Oh, don't need at the mic.
Oh,
Okay.
the last podcast we ate on the mic, so.
Oh, y'all were eating popcorn last time. No popcorn.
That was him.
Yeah.
I could hear the popcorn in the podcast.
Some people hated it. Yeah.
Hey, well, while I have another question
for that.
with all your experience, like, how do you think that the youth has connected to you or the other leaders? Like,
I think.
Do you see like a positive response or?
And it's funny. I guess this is where my Christian side really comes out. It's funny because this last week God has been speaking to me, to where it's like, in order for me to connect with my people, like my young people, they have to know who I am with my mistakes. And sometimes I feel like as youth pastors or leaders, we put up a front, like I'm perfect, so they don't really connect with you. So this week, like on Wednesday nights, I set up 2 tables, and I was like, all right, guys, we're gonna have uncensored with Pastor Wally.
I saw that. Yeah,
I'm like, you guys, we're gonna ask. There was topics that were brought up to where a lot of people would be scared of, because there was like, hey, have you been bullied before? What's your biggest fear? And I feel like nowadays with this generation, like we need to be honest with everybody. And that's the way I've started connecting with a lot of our new people. It's like they see me and I see something that they like. Like there's a new guy that started going to our church.
Yeah.
He's big into shoes. I'm like, okay, well, in order for me to connect with him, I have to find something in the middle to where it's like, okay, so I do my research about shoes, like, the latest Nikes, the latest this.
Boots.
Yeah, because if I'm only wearing Chelsea boots and he doesn't wear Chelsea boots, how's he gonna connect with me? So it's finding that thing of like football. I'm a big sports guy, so I could talk to a person for 2 hours, 3 hours about sports, and I'm cool with it. But then there's topics of music. Music is a big one for me because he told me, hey, well, I listen to this kind of music. What do you think about it? I was like, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm like, I don't listen to that kind of music just because I've changed over the past years. Yeah. But it's like connecting with people has helped me just being who I am. Like I joke around, I laugh. I used to make fun of them back in the day, but then I kind of started changing because I'm like, there also has to be that level of respect for them to see me as leader. Because sometimes we want to become their friends, and they don't see you as a leader. So they start talking to you however they want. And like I tell my leaders at church, hey, it's okay to build a relationship with them, but make sure that you kind of set the rules. Like, hey, this is, whenever we're talking about this, like this is this way. But if we're outside with we're eating pizza, we're eating wings, or whatever we're doing, like it's cool. You could talk to me, we could have fun. But then whenever you're around other people, like let's make sure that we kind of have that respect. So like, I've been getting a lot of feedback on the Uncensored Wednesday. It was like, they were like, man, Pastor Wally, like this is something that we needed. Because if they see me, they only see me as the pastor. So they don't know who I am outside. Like they don't know if I joke around. They don't know if I have fun. So they don't know my biggest fears or if I struggle with stuff. And I feel like nowadays with this young generation is like they need to see honesty. Because we put up a front of, I have everything under control. But deep inside, you get home and you're struggling. You're struggling with the sin, but you don't want to tell people because you feel like, man, I have to put up a front because then if not, they're not going to see me as a good pastor. But I feel like, if we're honest with them and they're on, like I told them on Wednesday, I said, if I tell y'all one day, hey, I haven't read my Bible, like I don't want you guys to judge me. I want you guys to say, hey, you know what? We're gonna pray for you, Pastor.
Like
Wally.
encourage you to
Yeah, because
start
it's like
reading more.
you know sometimes
Yeah.
it's like I apologized to them on Wednesday. I said, hey, you know what? There's been times where I haven't really studied to preach. Like they're just I come up with it on the fly, and it's like I haven't given you guys the respect because y'all need me. I need to prepare myself. And they were like, man, that's what we want. We want honesty from you and your wife and your leaders, because that's what it is. So you know, David's one of our biggest leaders at our church, and I've told him, I said, hey, you know what? Just build relationship with them. I know he talked about it in podcast number 6. He was big on that relationship, and that's where I come in. I'm big on that too. Like, in order for them to know who you are, they have to know who you are through everything.
Yeah, and another thing that you had just mentioned was that, you had said you had to be able, yes, to be friends with these people, with your youth, but at the same time you gotta, make sure, like you said, que no te empiezan a hablar como sea, because you gotta make sure you still have that status, hey, I'm the leader, there's rules and all that, but also make sure that it's the same for everyone. Don't have favorites. Just because this may be my cousin and I'm the leader, I'm gonna go ahead and root for him more. No, it has to be the same for everyone, and have the same rules for everyone. And I think that's my opinion, because sometimes it can get bad, if you're not able to do that, porque then there's these little groups or these little divisions over here. You know what? I'm not. I'm just gonna go ahead and not even try to participate because I know that I'm not gonna be heard or listened to. That's something. As leaders, you gotta be. You gotta be careful with that type of stuff.
And I think the biggest example for both for both of you guys, like what y'all just said, is Jesus. Like in the Gospels, whenever he was sitting with, sinful people, the Pharisees would come to him and be like, hey, you know what, you're wrong because you're eating with them, you're like having fun with them. And then he told them, okay, there was one guy that came all serious and y'all didn't listen to him, John the Baptist. Now I come like a fun guy, like someone to hang around with, and y'all are not happy either. So what do you guys need? The reason why I'm saying this is because Jesus was always like honest to everybody. He was always like honest, but he will get that respect from everyone. Of course, he got criticized by the Pharisees and all those religious people, but the people that he was trying to reach to, the bad people, sinful people, they all respected him, but at the same time they felt like a connection with Jesus.
Yeah, and another thing too is that sometimes there's this certain person that they may do a lot of stuff for the ministry, and you're the leader, and sometimes you kind of tend to have them in the first of the line because this guy gives the most, which is okay, but also try to give everybody the same level of respect, the same level of everything.
So I'm laughing because on Sunday, somebody mentioned to me to where like my daughter doesn't feel part of something. I'm like, so when they told me that, like I took it and I'm like, okay, well, let me look back at what we've done different and why doesn't she feel part of it? And there was times that it was more her attitude than the way we were approaching it. But like I told my wife, I'm like, well, no, I'm like, let's be fair with everybody, because there's, like you said, there's times, like in my example, like I have a David, he does a lot. Yeah. And there's times that you want to be like, hey, well, come on, David. But then I also have leaders under us in R4J that they do a lot. So it's kind of now is like, okay, for the ones that just came into our leadership, I have to build a relationship with them as well. And then it's going to start triggering with all my young people. So they're going to start seeing us as, oh, okay, well, they don't have favoritism. Because you see it at church. You know who the favorite ones are. You know who the ones that I could barely swallow. Or like that. Like just like, oh, yeah. Like, I know who, because we have those. But I was telling the hermano from our church, I'm like, if I ever want to become a senior pastor, I'm like, I have to start loving everybody. And I have to start putting up with everybody's attitude, with the way they see things, the way I do things. So it's just like, yeah, it's true. It's like we do sometimes have favorite people, but now it's more of a, well, we really can't do that because then if not, we start isolating the ones that really need our love. Like I know for me in my example, like David could be the leader for R4J. He could run this program by himself with his girlfriend and all the other leaders. But it's like, but I want to prepare other people to be able to say the same thing. Oh, you know what? Maybe their time isn't going to be with us. They're going to go somewhere else and do something else. But is like we gave it to everybody the same way.
So you're preparing people to be leaders.
Because sometimes you don't know where that hidden treasure can be, you know?
See, but then if we're preparing leaders, you have to also find, if we put rules, then you don't build relationships. So it's like, without relationships, they don't want to be under a leader. They don't want to know what leaders are. So it's like, at our church, we started what we call junior leaders. So it's kind of like interns. So my responsibility is to build a relationship with them, because then they're gonna see 15-year-olds that want to become leaders. You know, that's the thing. You have 15-year-olds that they're diamonds, like that you just have to kind of seek and look for them. But if the first thing I say, hey, these are the rules, you have to follow them. Like we're gonna have rules for the interns, but I'm also like, hey, I want to do life with you. Like what you guys do here, like that's something about doing life to where it's like it's big on.
So I want to include what you're saying, right? Because you're saying with your youth and you're growing them, like they are diamonds in themselves. So it's like, what if somebody started to judge them, you know? And if somebody started to judge them, they start to lose their confidence. Like, where's my confidence at? I don't know my abilities. I don't know what I have. What is out there? But once you said, but we had to build that relationship. We build a relationship, and then we start knowing who that person really is. You start to sharpen that diamond. You start to discover who that person really is. But I want to say that, and there's like this Bible verse where it says, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need.
Hebrews
4:16. Yeah.
He's
So,
good.
I mean, or he read my paper, which is kind of smart.
Or he saw the paper.
I swear I didn't see the.
That boy's staring at the
that
pizza
could possibly
hard,
happen.
I've been staring at the pizza.
He's looking for the verse through.
Yeah, no, because I'm like, hey, is that only for show to the cameras, or we can actually grab one? Because I'm hungry.
It's proof for you.
Nah, let's keep rolling.
yeah.
Let's keep rolling. Let's keep rolling. But I smell that pizza though.
That's like temptation right there. It's like I just see him reaching, and I'm like, right now he's just gonna be like, you know what? I give up. I'm giving up on this mic.
I don't think it was
But-
a good idea to put the pizza there.
I want
Me vas a ver gateando como bebé.
I want to include everything that I've just said, right? When I say that you can't just religiously cut somebody like a pizza, you know? You can't just like make it a certain way where you want it to be. You can't have it your way, like Hawaiian. You can't have it like pineapple. You can't put all this stuff. You can't put a certain person with a different set of clothes, because that's not them, you know? So if you religiously cut them in a certain way, then that's your religion, but it's not really a relationship. You know
Let
what
me
I'm saying?
stop you right there, man. You don't add pineapple to pizza, okay? That's
I
a
don't.
rule.
I really don't. I don't.
Hey, but in
I don't.
California, that's big.
The
Oh,
California
really?
pizza?
That
I think
that
it was
pepperoni with pineapple.
Isn't it called Hawaiian pizza?
Yeah, see.
No, but you find it kind of weird because
That's
it's-
an abomination, bro.
like he said, like California, or you said California, there's like pineapples included, right? But let's say like in Ireland, like pastures over there, they drink beers like if it was nothing.
Oh
you
yeah,
see that?
and we've had this conversation with. Well, we had a pastor friend that came from Spain.
Mm-hmm.
They drink wine, so it's like, I bet you if somebody saw me drinking wine, it would be like, is that
Like,
Pastor
whoa.
Wally? Like what? Is,
Pacifica?
yeah, and that's the part too where it's like we have to understand that there's some rules that is like doesn't apply to us because it's like, you know, you've seen it. Like he said, there's people in the other side of the world that do stuff that for us it would be like
Whoa.
like, oh my Lord, like that's a sin. But it goes back to like knowing what kind of relationship you have with God and relationship with the leaders that are around you.
But there's even like churches that even pastors like smoke. There's like a culture, I think it's either in Michigan or whatever it was, where it's just pastors, they just smoke at the same time. Not to say that's correct. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying like there's some people that go all the way to. Man, I remember going to Andy Mineo concert, and I literally saw like a guy like just smoking in there. Like I'll be like, whoa. But that's not Andy Mineo's fault. That's the people that were in the bottom, not the people, but that person that was there.
So, okay,
they have their different.
So
cultures.
now thank you for putting that example. So okay, what would happen if that was in our church? Like if somebody walked in,
like a judgmental.
like what do y'all think and I'm speaking as an Hispanic culture. Like what do y'all think our reaction would be? And I'm not trying to take over the podcast, but it's something to where I always think about that. What would happen if somebody drunk comes into our church? You know, sometimes we've had homeless people come in, and there's times that I've seen people like pretty much kick them out of church, and I'm like, well, how are we gonna kick them out of church if that's the kind of people that we need? So I don't know what you guys.
No,
think
yeah,
about
because
that.
there was. Oh, you want to say something?
Well, there's a verse in the Bible where it says, you know, where there was someone that was poor, and then he was in the front, but they made him go to the back. You know what that verse was?
And we all look at him.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Carlos
Carlos,
because
I'm taking my break right now.
Carlos is like, I'm
'Cause,
worried about the
yeah,
wing. I'm not worried about that
like,
verse.
people judge
Let me get a
them.
napkin, please, man.
People judge them because they come as they are. You know, how is a poor guy gonna get to know God if he goes into the church with clothes like that? He's gonna get rejected. People are gonna look at him like weird. They're not gonna want to shake his hand. They're not gonna want to, like, you know, introduce him to God. He's gonna be like an outcast. So I feel like that's how we do. Even though people are not poor, we have stereotypes of, you know, in our minds of how people, you know, who should we talk to, who should we approach and stuff like that. And I feel like it's about who you, like, just come as you are, you know, and love upon that person, you know, because you don't know what that person is dealing with. That person might be going through financial problems, and that's where he's at in life. But you have to have mercy. That's part of being a Christian. You
All right,
know?
well, I gotta say this real quick because we're talking about two different things. Because
Si habla Rudy. Si habla Rudy.
What you're saying is right and everything. But what the example that Angel was saying, you know, that someone was smoking there, you know, when someone is actually doing it in there, like, let's say you say someone came in drunk, you know. Like, in my opinion, I don't want no, like, if someone's drunk, you know, I don't want them to be kicked out.
But
Maybe
you're saying if they go to church and they're still drinking,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not right.
I mean, you have to respectfully say, like, hey, can you just drink outside? But something like respectfully, but not like, hey, dude, like, what you doing? Like, that you shouldn't be doing this. Like, but I see some people doing that stuff. Or some even churches have even like security and be like, hey, can you kick them out? Yeah. Like, kick them out?
I just wanted to clarify that. Though.
Yeah, which is good because that's different. Because I know that actually, I think it was Lecrae's concert. One of those concerts. Somebody came to me and they were like, man, they were doing this. They were serving alcohol. But I'm like, but that's part of the venue. Like, that's nothing that he could do.
Yeah.
It was just, hey, if you want to rent this venue, everything has to be open. So, like, in that case,
because they were trying to make a profit.
Yeah. In that
somehow.
Case, what do you do in that case? I'm like, there's nothing that he could do. It's not.
You can't judge Lecrae for that.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, you know, that's the kind of thing.
It's like you're yourself a pastor, and you can't judge. The people can't judge you because of a person that was underneath you, like your sheep that was underneath you. It's like, oh, that guy did this, but they can't claim you. They have to know you.
First they have to know you before they could start accusing you of stuff. See, because a lot of people see me, and it's like, I grew up a pastor's kid, you know.
A perfect life.
I lived, you know, I've been in Christianity my whole life, but what they don't know is I've been kicked out of school. I was in jail for 7 months, and it's when people see you like that, that's the first thing that is like, they only see me as Pastor Wally, but it's like, get to know me outside of church, and I'll tell you my story. Like, you know, when I tell people I was in jail, they're like, you were in jail? Whoa. And I was like, yeah, I was in jail for 7 months, and it happened a couple years ago. And it was like, but after all that happened, God has started taking us to a different place in ministry. But it's like, that's why I'm like, I really take relationships serious with people, because it's like, you don't know when you're serving the right person or when you're actually, like, you know, Martin. If I serve Martin, like, he might be going through something, and I don't know about it, but it might help him out to where it's like, oh man, like, dang, that's crazy. Like, Pastor Wally's not only a pastor, he's also like willing to help us out, willing to do this. So, so it goes back to, man, honestly, I'm not a big fan of rules. Like, I understand there's order, but man, it's like, dude, sometimes you scare people away from churches.
I mean, I do like rules, because I mean, I know that they were made to protect people, but there's a limit. Like, too many rules are like too many rules. And I have a question for you. How did I think about this? I think you told me that you wanted to ask him. Did you ever struggle, like, being a pastor's kid and living up to like being a pastor's kid?
How was it to be a pastor's kid? You know.
So I still struggle with that. Like, back in the day, I would tell my dad, like, man, why did you become a pastor? I'm like, I don't want to, because it's like all the eyes are on you. And even now, like, all the eyes are like, you know, whatever I do, it's like, well, Pastor Wally did it. So, like, it's okay for me to do it. So it's like, man, I always struggled with that. Now I kind of embrace it. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. They want to look at me like I'm cool with it. Like, this is who I am. I wear jeans. You know, I listen to rap music, Christian rap music before somebody judges me. I listen to crap.
Kick him out.
Yeah, I listen to rap music. I listen to a lot of worship music. But when I was younger, I would struggle with that. Like, being a pastor's kid is not easy. So that's why, like, I pray about it when I have kids.
Was he a pastor before you were born, or
No, so we started, like, when I was born, we lived in California. So my dad, you know, he was like the right hand of the priest in the Catholic church. So we were Catholics. Well, I wasn't really Catholic. Then we moved to Houston when I was 5, and it was like, you know, he gave his life to Christ. We started going to church, and it was like till I was like probably like in middle school. That's whenever he became a pastor. We were in Arkansas, so it was like, you know, it was all new for us. And then the church that we were at, it was very like there was rules, and I wasn't good at that because I never really liked following rules, and it was like always a struggle too, where it's like being a pastor's kid is not easy. People think it's easy. Es el hijo del pastor, but with that comes a lot of eyes, a lot of judging.
And not only to you, but your parents as well.
It's like, no, mira, si lo hizo él, I could do it. But it's like, no, I'm like, I always tell people, like, don't look at me. Because I'm not perfect. But it's like, shoot, it was a struggle growing up. Now I'm like, well, I can't push people away. Like, if they're going to judge me, they're going to criticize me. I am who I am. And it's like, you know, we've been criticized for a lot of stuff that we do, like events and stuff. But luckily, my dad has been very supportive, our pastor. So it's like, as they get who I am, like.
Yeah. No, and I like when it comes to rules, like me, like I've always been really lenient. I mean, I really don't have a problem following rules. I really have never. Yeah, there's been times where they've come up to me, hey Martin, you know, this and that, and I'm like, you know, okay, you know, because I really, you know, it doesn't hurt me, you know, I don't really, you know, okay, that's what you want me, and you know, I love this place, I love y'all, I'm okay, if this is what you want, I'm gonna go ahead, I don't mind, but you know, I think one of the important things about rules también is that, you know, and I don't know, it's probably been mentioned already, but you know, it helps keep that like that order, you know. Yeah, you're still a leader, and I go back to what you said earlier, and I really like what you said. You know, build that relationship with the youth, but also let them know, hey, you know, yeah, we're still leaders. You know, we still have that face. You know that, hey, we have to set maybe these rules that, you know, so they won't start doing what they want to do, whatever they want to do. You know, and which is really which is kind of sort of hard to have control of that if when you say rules, is that word rules, it's like sounds so harsh, but you know, I really can't find another word to say it, but you know, I think it's another important thing.
Normas.
Reglas.
Yeah.
So imagine if they, like, from the very beginning, imagine if they religiously shaped you and the person they wanted you to be, like the opinions of others, maybe the people that were under you, like not under you, but I would say the people that criticized you, the opinions of others. What if you were led by that? What if you were led by religious opinions and made you a certain way and then would you feel it? Did you ever feel it like, this is not the way? This is not the way that I have to be. Like you said, whenever they told you the tie and stuff like that, how did that feel? No, this is not right. This doesn't feel good for me. This is not me.
Man, whenever that conversation came up, it was like, for me, it was like, hold on, like it's not who I am. Mm-hmm. So if I was to like go by the rules of what people wanted me to be, I don't know if I'll be in church. Honestly speaking, being really, really honest, just because some people want you to be this way, and I've always been this way, and it's like, this is who I am. So whenever that conversation came up about the whole tie stuff, like I was like, man, if they're trying to change me, like it's gonna be hard for me to be who I am. Because it's true, it's like the moment that they change your identity, like they take away everything. And I'm big on identity. Like, man, I am who I am. Like I joke, I do whatever. Like I do crazy stuff. And my wife's like, babe, you're too crazy sometimes. And like, how are people gonna connect with you? But it's like I've seen it at church. Like my style of preaching is very different than my dad's and our other associate pastor. And it's like, you know, I've started connecting with the older generation. And I'm big on that too. Like, how am I going to connect with the 50-year-old person and I'm 30? And it's like, are they going to see me as a pastor? But at the same time, I'm not going to go by their opinion because their opinion might be different than the way I see church. You know, I'm big on having coffee and donuts in the morning. Some people don't like that. Some people are like, if we're here to church, we're here to have church. You know, I'm different when it comes to youth activities. Like, I love smoke. I love lights. Some people say that's too much for the show. I'm cool with the show because I feel like it's somebody that doesn't doesn't know who God is and comes into our youth event, it's like they're gonna be like, oh, like, man, I didn't know that.
And everybody has different tastes, you know. Like, and it's like oh, I like this brand of clothes, or somebody else. No, I like this brand of clothes, or I like this store. No, I like that.
You know what brand I like? Los Revs.
Everybody,
you can buy the shirt,
Buy the merch.
Everybody has their different tastes. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, the way you are, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people like that. You know, and I'm pretty sure the people that are like that are gonna be, you know, attracted, you know, to you. And obviously, you know, you work because of God. You know, and I'm pretty sure, you know, you pray and all that, and you feel like you're okay. You know, and I think that's the beauty. You know, that everybody. You know, everybody has different tastes, and I think whatever taste you like, hey, well, this is my guy right here.
but I also do have moments of where I realize, like, dang, like that was the wrong thing for me to do. Like, I really messed up. So there's moments too where I'm like, when I first do it, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Right.
And then when I do it, I'm like, yeah, I don't think the church was ready for it. Like, it didn't work out the way I expected it. Like, so there's times where I have moments of, ooh, I really did it. Like, I wasn't supposed to do that yet.
So has there ever been times where you felt like there was like a misunderstanding?
Oh, there's always misunderstandings. There's always moments of I'm like,
no, but the way you
like the
did
way
things.
Yeah. There's times there's like yeah, like
did they get it or not?
Like, yeah, I don't think they got it. Even when our youth, like when I do something on Wednesday nights, like I leave home and I'm like, damn, I don't think they got it. Like, I don't think I did it the right way. Yeah. So there's times where I'm like, okay. And I tell our social team, like our media members, I'm like we can't be watching what other churches are doing, like on social media, because I'm like, then we fall into that of, man, I want to do that, I want to do this.
See, I want to include something with that, because I've been having it in my head, and finally you said something with that. It's like there's comparisons, like, hey, I had to compare myself with that church. Why aren't you like that church? Why can't you be like that church? And then they'll be like, they get invited, or somebody's in a different church setting is like, hey, why aren't you doing this or something like that? But when I say, like, why don't you even compare, like, with your father, who's a pastor as well? Why don't you compare it to that point? It was like, man, they're comparing me with my dad, but I'm my own person. And the same thing will feel somebody that's like a youth or somebody that's younger and be like, and then somebody be like, hey, you should be like Marta, you should be like Sonia. Why aren't you like Sonia? Why aren't you like... No, it can't be that way. You can't just shape somebody how you want it to be.
Yeah, so for me, it was like, you know, my dad was my dad's a senior pastor, and then whenever I start preaching, like, I was very different, and I told my dad, I'm like, man, I don't think I preach the same way you do. I'm like, I don't know how people are gonna react, and it was always that you have to preach this way. But yeah, but I don't use a lot of verses. It's not that God isn't using me, but I'm not big on verses. Like, yeah, like I study my Bible when I have to preach and I read it, but it's like, I feel like I'm one or like 2 or 3 verses, 4 points. Come on, piano in the background, and my dad doesn't like that. Or not, he doesn't like that.
Do it again at the end.
Do it again. See, so like anytime I preach with Chelsea boots on. That's something I would Chelsea boots. Jeans.
You gotta check if there's no gums in the bottom.
I don't think there is. and then the piano in the background. Like anytime I go anywhere, like there's piano in the background. Not other people at our church when they preach. They want everything to be like silence, and I'm not like that. I want people to talk back to me. Like if I say something, like I want to hear an amen. And it was like, you know, you see that now, like where it's like, hey, I want you to be more like this, but I'm not like that. And it's funny that you bring that up, because I just told our youth this week, I'm like, hey, I want to apologize to you guys, because sometimes I see on social media other churches that, you know, I preached at Wake. Shout out to them. They invited me to preach. What they're doing is amazing. And then you go back home and you're like, well, why can't we do that? But then I start thinking about, but I don't know what they've done behind the doors to get where they're at. So my responsibility now as a pastor is, how am I going to take our youth group to another level without comparing myself to the church that's next to me? Because we fall into that to where like, man, I want to be like this church, but I don't know their struggles. I don't know how long it took them to grow 100 people and they raised up their hands for, you know, because I don't know about you guys, but I know we tell our guys, like, hey, we're going to worship. It's like they get scared. But then you go to other churches, it's like, man, they hear a song and it's like,
start dancing.
Wow, and it's like, and you're like, me, sometimes you sit there and you're like, well, what am I doing wrong? But then sometimes I'm like, I really can't compare myself to who they are, because that's their identity. I have a youth group that's, you know, some of them are very outgoing, some of them are very quiet, some of them you say hi to them and they don't know what to say, but then it goes back to they don't know who you are. So that's my thing.
It goes back where they don't have that confidence. They don't
Yeah,
have,
like
they can't raise their hands.
I have
or they
13-year-old kids that I'm like, hey, what's up? And they like freak out. Like, and I tell them, I said, bro, I'm just asking you how you're doing. But then you have older people that are like that. Like you try to shake their hand and they give you like they just kind of touch you like I have germs. And it's like, but then that goes back to they don't know who I am. So it's like, of course they're not gonna have a relationship with me. So it's like, you know, that's where I'm trying now to build a relationship with the older generation, so that way we can become a bridge for the younger generation and the older generation, and
everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy.
That's what Carlos said on the other podcast, right?
Yeah, so we're like a bridge. Like
whenever you said that on the last podcast, it had me thinking so much.
Yeah, because it's like, because we were talking about it with David. I was like, I don't feel too old, but I don't feel too young. And some people say like, no das ni pa uno ni pa el otro, but I think we can use it as an advantage. I feel like repeating what I just said last time.
I really like what you said right now, that, you know, try not to be like other churches, you know, because, you know, the way they got there is because of their identity and everything. And the same way how everybody's different, every youth group is different. You know, probably the way they work now is because that's what they needed, you know. That's what they needed, what they need, you know, to do, you know. And it's a big responsibility for the leadership, whoever is in charge of the youth leadership, to get to know your youth, you know, to get to know who they are, to get to know what they like, to get to know what they're going through. That way, you're able to build this thing where, you know, this is how we're gonna do things from now on, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's once they get to know you, it's easier for them to know the vision. So I actually just texted my brother this morning, and I'm like, hey, we need to start having nights of where we talk about what like the DNA is of our church, because without them knowing the DNA, they're not really ever gonna have like that feel to it. So I'm like, if we build like relationship with people and we share, hey, you know, this is how we do church. Like, yeah, it's cool. We wear jeans during worships. You know, maybe at your old church they didn't allow it, but it's like them getting to know who we are outside of church helps you when you're inside of church. Like, I know that there was a pastor that I talked to, and he was like, you know, what we did was build a relationship with people. And I think now they have like 100-something people. And it was like, I was like, wow, you know, I'm like, it's so true. That's what they need. Build a relationship, and everything else is going to start working. The vision of the house, the rules of the house. They're not going to see them as rules. Now they're just going to see them as, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do church. But it's like whenever it's normal for them. But now it's making sure that when somebody comes in that doesn't go to church, make them feel like they're part of it. Make them feel part of the family. And it's like, oh, well, man, Martin came in. We really don't know who he is, but let's embrace him. Make him feel part of it. And that when he leaves or he doesn't come back or he decides to come back, he's like, man, this is what I call home.
Now I have a question. I hope this isn't. I hope y'all understand this question. But you know how, let's say when you're in an interview, like you're gonna work at a store, and they ask you, how would you deal with a certain customer that's having an attitude or giving you problems? Now my question to you is, like, how would you deal with
a customer?
With people,
this is not an interview, bro.
With people that will come to your church and ask you, hey, I see you guys do all this so many things different. I don't agree with it. You know, has that ever happened to you? Or I'm pretty sure it has. You know, how
I think that happens a lot to you, man.
You being a youth pastor, you know, was something
that happens too often. Like, so this is what I just told my youth on Wednesday. I'm like, if your parents tell y'all anything about this uncensored Wednesdays that we're doing, send them my way. I'm like, because they're gonna get freaked out when I tell them, hey, man, I didn't read my Bible this week. You know, parents. Oh my Lord, like, I know that there's.
What are you teaching my kids?
Yeah, but it's like, I said, send them my way. I'm like, so that way I could go back with another question. So I'm one of those, like, if you're gonna call me out, like, you better have all your details of why we do things.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot by asking you this.
And you're good, because it's like sometimes they want
these haters.
And I tell them, take them haters off, man.
and I think that kind of goes back to what you said about, sometimes I ask myself, what am I doing wrong? But I think that's the answer, that you're seeing fruit. And we talked about it with David. As long as you see fruit, you're like, hey, I'm okay.
Yeah, and some people aren't going to understand how you're getting fruit.
The pineapple fruit.
Yeah. Like, people are going to see your church and be like, well, how are they growing if they're this way? But it's like, but that's the DNA that God gave you guys. Like, you know, we do church, like y'all said, we have lights, we have smoke. Sometimes my wife, shout out to my wife Priscilla, she's like, babe, you put too much fog and I'm choking. I'm like, well, babe, it's okay.
I'm choking with the tight now.
I'm like,
It's okay. It's fine to choke.
I'm
It's
like,
fine to choke.
it's cherry sin. I'm like, it's cherry sin. So I'm like, you're not gonna die. I'm like, it's gonna be okay. But we do have moments of
My throat has
Me
sticks.
intoxiqué.
yeah. But we do have
Is
moments
it
back to
vapor?
Martin to where it's like, hey, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, I'm like, you know, this has worked for us. Like for example, and this is me, Real Love. Real Love has been a conference that has been criticized from people within our circle and people out of our circle.
Univision.
Like we've been on,
Washington Post.
we've been on the news. No, but we've been criticized to where, why do y'all do these kind of things? Like, what's the purpose of it? And I've always told them, I said, well, when this first started, it was gonna be a night of, you know, for the guys not to be in Halloween. I'm not against, you know, against fall festivals, whatever churches do, that's their thing. But we wanted to have like music, preaching, and all that fun stuff. And this year, some guy that from the neighborhood, he showed up at Real Love. Somehow he got invited. I didn't know about him. He was on the brink of, you know, bad things. You know, he had bad thoughts. He showed up and it was like God spoke to him. So whenever I see that kind of result, I'm like, it's cool for people to ask me questions of why we do this. Like I had a church member ask me at our church, right before Real Love, we canceled Wednesday service. And Hispanic people don't like the service to be canceled for anything.
Right.
But our pastor was like, hey, we're going to cancel service and we're going to help the youth clean up, have everything ready for Friday. He comes up to me and he's like, nobody's going to show up.
Ooh.
He said, nobody's going to show up Wednesday. I said, well, look.
To clean.
I said, well, look, I'm going to be here. My leaders are going to be here. I think you're going to be here.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. We show up to Wednesday and it was like the whole church was there cleaning up. And I looked at him and I'm like, everybody showed up. I'm like, what happened? And then he started asking me, so what's the purpose behind these events? I'm like, man, it's just giving them a space of freedom. Because during camp, during youth conference, they feel free, you know, because they're not feeling judged. My purpose now is how am I going to keep up with them, you know, once we come back from camp, once we come back from a conference. But I've had people ask me that question, like, why do y'all do these events? And I'm like, it's simple. I'm like, one, to honor God, and two, to give our guys freedom to be who they are.
To bring non-Christian people to
So like for Real Love, like if y'all, I think one of y'all went to Real Love.
This guy over there. Yeah.
It was dark. There was a lot of lights.
Te tropezaste.
There was
Nah, I didn't fall.
a lot of smoke, and it was like
It wasn't a lot of smoke though.
I wasn't.
I wasn't like.
Okay, well, this year, bro, is gonna be like double the smoke.
Damn, no, no smoke.
Damn.
Oh.
El Espíritu Santo. No,
This is
no,
gonna be
never
like-
mind. This is smoke.
As soon as you walk in,
I'm gonna bring the for the asthma, dude. I'm gonna bring it.
Now, one thing
I'm
that
gonna bring it for everybody. I put.
Is
Los
that a
Revs.
ghost? No, it's Wally in the smoke.
and this is me being open to you. Like one thing that really like.
What if I have asthma?
One thing that
we'll
really.
have a room for you.
Oh, wow. There's
What?
a TV.
With
on
a
there.
different kind of smoke.
One thing that threw
Take
me
care
off
of the kids.
was the whole the ticket thing. I'm like, oh, that's new. Like, you know how you had to
Oh, yeah.
register and all that.
So that was new for a lot of people, and a
Yeah.
lot of people didn't understand what's the purpose of a ticket. But it gave us the heads up, one, for merchandise.
Head count.
Yeah, like because it's like if you tell me, hey, I'm gonna be at your conference, and I order 5 shirts or the food trucks, and it's like we only get 10 people to show up. It's one of those like so. With the ticket stuff, it was a lot of going back and forth. Like, man, should we do it? You know, and it also gave us the ability to like reserve spots for people. So like if we knew like a church was like there was a church that was coming, they emailed us and we emailed them back, hey, we're gonna have a seat saved for you guys in the front. And it was like as soon as they came in, their seats were already reserved, and it was simple. When people see that, they're trying to be bigger than what they are. But my mindset has always been, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it like all out. Like this past week, we had a men's meeting. The pastor gave me freedom to kind of take over the men's meeting. I had a guy come out and do worship with us. I had music. We had, I preached. So it was very different than their traditional men's meeting because they usually just meet up in the kitchen, eat, small Bible study. But I told my dad, I'm like, well, let's change it up. I'm like, let's go all out. I'm like, I'll invite a friend, help us with music, and do it. So when the ticket conversation came up for Real Love, it was like should we do it? Are people gonna get turned off? Are they not gonna know what to do with it?
Probably get scared.
They're probably gonna be like, do I have to pay for it? But it was free. But it just gave us a head count of, oh shoot, like a group of 10 people are coming. So that way, let's reach out to them and say, hey, if you guys need seats.
Sort of like an RSVP. Yeah.
Yeah. So and it was a cool experience because if you actually printed out the ticket, like it said real love, it had your name, it had the dates. So it was like, you know, for some people they were like, well, I saved my ticket. So for us it was like, oh, well, that's cool, you know.
It's official.
It's official. and that's the idea. It's like for us, real love, I wanted to become official to where it's like, oh shoot, I'm never gonna charge. Like if I would have charged this year, I think we would have been okay financially because it was like $5 a head. It was more than 400 people. You do the math. But I was like, I've always been like
2,000.
I didn't do the math. I'm not good at math, being honestly. So if you say what'd you say?
2,000.
Should I charge? Nah. Nah, but it was
Do 10, do 10. $10 instead of 5.
You go? If I charge $10?
Sure.
You didn't go this year. What happened, man?
Yes, for free.
I mean, you know, I have this like special treatment where you let me go for free.
Oh yeah, all you guys going for free. Nah, but it was something that we did for free. We're always gonna do it for free unless, like I tell the guys, I'm like, real love isn't just mine. It's our
It isn't
4Js.
just the fake love. It's real love.
No, it's like, hey, go for it. We're not gonna charge. All we're gonna do is sell shirts, and we had a food truck this year.
Hey,
Oh, food truck this year?
give him for
What?
free.
Nah, the food truck was you had to pay. Well, you went on Friday,
Yeah, I went off.
so
Friday.
Saturday we had food trucks.
Oh my goodness.
We had
Well, that's where y'all failed.
yeah, we had
Nah, I'm
see,
kidding.
and it's true. So if we were being honest, we failed because we should have had the food truck for Friday instead of Saturday. And it was like, well, now we're looking at it, we're like, oh, well, we should have done it for
You want to
Friday.
have them both days or just one day?
This year we want to do it both days.
Trust me, with me, you'll get enough money to pay for one day. I ate a lot.
But I want to do like actual, like a Mexican food truck.
Como taquito.
Yeah, so if y'all know of anyone,
Bro, I got to hook up. I got the
anybody's hearing the podcast.
Favor
Dude,
de Dios.
We got the hook up.
Catering.
We
Yeah,
got
like
the-
I'm more of like I wanted the guys to leave with tacos, tortas.
Damn, you want to fatten them, dude.
Gorditas.
You want to
Hey man,
put that grease in them.
like you leave full with the word and yeah, like you said.
Man, you put them all.
Salsita, porque si no, no cuenta.
A lot of people are gonna show up then.
Even Rudy is going to show up.
Yeah, we'll have
Now, he's going to show up with a suit.
Ah.
It's like, wait,
Nah,
he's
see, but we're building a relationship, so he's not gonna go with
He always wears tuxedos.
Nah,
Like, he doesn't even wear it, so he wears tuxedos.
Chelsea boots, jeans. I'm just like you, bro.
See? And
Not
that's,
like
and,
it was-
and that's the other thing. It's as youth pastors, sometimes we fall into the same category. If you look at all the youth pastors that are out there, even modern pastors, they all wear Chelsea boots. And it's like it's so funny because it's part of the trend to where it's like Chelsea boots, jean jackets, ripped jeans. You know, now they wear bracelets or
Bracelets.
chains, and I'm like, you gotta
bandanas.
Not a fan
now.
of chains, but you know.
You got to get in the gang now? Nah, I'm kidding.
It's like you're part of the
Welcome
whatever.
to the,
The
Modern
youth
Youth
pastor-
Pastor Club.
So it's like, yeah, and then you see other churches that their youth pastors, they're laid back, and I'm like, dang, how are they doing it? But it goes back to, you know, when we compare each other, it's like that doesn't help a lot.
I wanted to talk about like more the aspect of how people see
Fashion.
Christianity as religion, you know, and I wanted to say, because they see how, you know, you got to pray, you got to do this, you got to...
recording.
They do it like a checklist, you know? Check this, check that, pray, I have my Bible, I dress like this, I do this, you know, like I come to church all the time. That's a religion, you know, but it's not about a religion, about rules, it's about a relationship with God. Like God wants, you don't pray because they tell you to pray. You pray because you love God and you want to communicate with God. And then like you don't go to church because your parents tell you or because it's a social group that you have in there with favorites, people you want to catch up with your friends. No, you do that. That's part of church, but that's not the main point. If you go to church just for that, then you miss the point. Like church is like you go to church because you want to build a relationship with God. You want to worship God. You want to learn about Him. And then like other points I want to say is that in the Old Testament, like Jesus been wanting to have a relationship with us since Adam and Eve. You know, He walked with Adam and Eve. You know, in the Garden of Eden. You know, and like He's been wanting to have a relationship with us since the beginning. But because of sin, it stops us to have a relationship with God. You know, And then people, when they try to go inside to, Christianity, they're just like, they don't, like you were saying some good points. They see a lot of people that are very religious, they're suit, tie, and stuff like that. But you got to be real with them. You got to come into their level of ground where where their shoes are at, like coming into, just remember where you came from, You have to relate with them. You have to be real with them. Like, hey, sometimes I don't read my Bible,
See, and I don't know if you're recording, but just to go off of that, man, it's something to where, like when I was in jail, like I was already a Christian. I had just came back from a youth camp. They had given me a prophetic word that I was going to work with young people all over the place. And I get to jail, I'm like, I can't give them religion. Like I can't tell them, oh, I'm Christian. Like I need to get to their level. So it was like, hey, you know what? I love God. This is who I am. So when I started thinking like that at church, I'm like, at jail, I was like, that needs to be in church. Like I need to be able to relate with somebody because it's true. They come in and all they hear about is sin. The first thing you're gonna do is like, why go to church if I'm getting called out? Exactly. So it was like, and I tell my leaders at church, it's, hey, like, sin is big, but don't focus on it, because the moment that you focus on that as young people, like they get turned off. Because whenever at home they tell you, hey, why'd you do this? Clean your room. Why did you pick this up? Like when you're young, you kind of just like, man, I'm not even gonna do it no more. Like, I do it and I get called out for it. So it was like, I feel like it's a good topic, man. It's one of those like, we do that so often. It's more of a, hey, if you're coming into church, read your Bible. But it's like, I don't know what they went through during the week. Like, I don't know if maybe they don't have a Bible.
Exactly.
Or pray. Yeah, but what if they don't know how to pray?
Exactly.
And that's what I was telling our leaders, our youth this week. I'm like, guys, if you don't pray, like, I'm not going to judge you no more. Because then if not, I feel like I'm just taking over God's spot. I'm going to tell you, hey, how could I help you? If you don't know how to pray, tell me, hey, I don't know how to pray. And that's wherever it's like, because that's the thing, they come in with their mindset of their parents, their rules, their religion. Exactly. And I was telling David, this week, I'm like, rules start becoming religion, from our parents. Hey, you have to worship this way. Like we were doing a series at church with our young people about worship. And I asked them, hey, what's the biggest issue about why is it hard for you guys to raise up your hand? They were like, well, one, because I feel like my parents are going to judge me. So if I raise my hand here at church, like I have to be different at home, because then if not, they're gonna be like, well, why are you raising up your hand if at home you don't want to clean your room?
Pero en la iglesia bien que eres te pones así, y en la casa.
So those are rules that affect us, and I was telling them. Like,
en la casa estás flojo, pero en la iglesia estás ahí como.
No tiendes tu cama, pero en la iglesia estás recoge y recoge.
Y que brinca. So I was telling my guys, I'm like, this is where I want you to be, like honest with me, like tell me, hey. Like, man, Pastor Wally, like, it's hard. Like, I'm struggling with pornography. It's like, okay, well, how could we help you?
That's a good topic.
Instead of you saying, hey, man, you're going to hell. Because that's the thing.
Dude, that's religion
we officially,
right there,
we become, like, pretty much like the judge. It's like, I don't know what they're going through. It's like, I have my struggles. Like, I was telling our guys this week, like, my biggest struggle growing up was pornography. So, like, if somebody comes up to me and tells me, hey, I struggle with pornography, I'm not going to be like, oh, go read your Bible. Because sometimes that doesn't change people. Like, my parents could tell me, read your Bible and pray every day. But the moment I'm done reading my Bible and praying, pornography's still going to be there. But it's like, if they build a relationship with you, Rudy, and it's like, hey, man, I'm struggling. You're going to be like, okay, well, let's do life together. Like, the moment that you feel like you're about to struggle, call me. And like I tell my guys, hey, the moment that you feel like when they're in a relationship with boyfriend and girlfriend, Valentine's Day is coming up. It's like the moment that you feel like, hey, I'm about to go to third base, you better stop and call me and say, hey, P. Wally, I'm going to third base. Like, what do I have to do? Well, you better FaceTime me so I could be in the middle of that conversation. Well, yeah, because it's like, and I tell my guys, like, I've been there. Like, I'm 30 years old. Like, I've done relationships. Like, me and my wife, we struggled, and it's nothing I'm proud of. But I'm like, I know what it is to go on a date and be like, oh, well, let me hold your hand. Yeah, but holding your hand starts leading into something else. So that's why I tell him, I could tell you to read your Bible every day. Rudy, read your Bible every day. But the moment that you're with the girl, it's like, changes. What Bible? What prayer?
What's a Bible?
What is he speaking to you?
It's like, why am I, what fasting?
Hey, he knows you're one.
Yeah, because you could tell somebody, hey.
I preach.
Like,
praise be Wally.
Fast for the whole week before Valentine's Day. So you won't fall into sin. guys are guys. It's like that's all I can say. Guys are guys, girls are girls. But it's like if I give them the rule of hey, do this, do this.
Yeah.
It's like if I give them the option of hey, I want to be in the middle of it. Like let me know how your relationship is going. That way it could be like, oh, okay, well he's not giving me just rules. He's actually cares about my relationship as a boyfriend and girlfriend. Because like I tell my guys, I don't want y'all to struggle the way me and my wife struggled. Because we fell into sin or whatever. But it's like you have your results. Like, we've been married for 8 years, but we've struggled, when we first got married. And we look back and we laugh and we're like, man, we should have just waited. Like we should have waited, but at that moment nobody really cared about us as people. Yeah. It was more of, hey, what could you do for me at church? Instead of, hey, what could I do to invest in your relationship? Yeah. Maybe take you out to eat. Maybe for Valentine's Day, don't see her. Spend time with her, I don't know, some other day. During the day, don't go out on the night. Like I'm big on that. I tell my leaders, try to avoid going out in the night. Because even though
go with some other people.
Yeah, because even though you could be a preacher and you could be preaching with young people and you could be saving, like you could be saving people all over the place. It's like I put my hand on his leg, on her leg, and it kind of starts like moving. Whoa. But it goes back to like if they have a relationship and trust me enough to call me and be like, ooh, Pastor Wally, like I'm about to struggle. Like I'm about to.
Pastor Wally, she just touched
I'm
my leg.
I'm about to mess up right now.
I'm about to mess up right now.
She just touched my leg.
What do you think? What do you think?
And
that's
I'm
gonna
ashy.
be different. You see?
I'm ashy, Pastor Wally. She touched my leg.
It's like don't let her touch your leg.
But no, but
it goes back to if I was only to give them like the religious side of it, like
they wouldn't
trust me enough to call me.
Yeah.
It's like I was talking to David, and David was like, man, it's because you give it to like when we talk honestly. Like I tell him, hey, how's it going with your relationship? He tells me, and with my other leaders, we have that same conversation. Now what I'm trying to do is have the same conversation with our younger generation to be like, hey, how are you doing at home? Man, I struggle. Like, I get on Instagram's like the devil for young people. Like I'm not against social media, but like you could be scrolling through Instagram and there's gonna be a girl that's gonna pop out.
Yeah.
And it's like,
whoa.
It's like, whoa, what do you do there?
Es el diablo.
And even for us pastors, that's a struggle. To where it's like, man, sometimes it's better just to get away from it. Like, this is me being honest, and if you're gonna put this on the podcast, it's cool.
Cut it.
Like, I told my leaders, I'm like it's hard for me to be at home by myself, because even though I read my Bible, I pray, like I don't want temptation to creep in.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, if I'm home by myself, I'm either like this morning I was watching the movie, then I took a shower and I got ready and I was watching, Beto. But it was like I always try to keep my mind like busy, because if not, it's like, man, it's hard for me to, oh man, well let me check what's on Instagram or let me check what's on Facebook. But it's like that's the kind of relationships that we need to have with people, to where it's like, hey, you know what, like this is my account, check it. Hold me accountable, because when you hold somebody accountable, that means that you have a relationship with that person. But if they just only see you as, it's only Martin. Yeah. Like, what is Martin gonna do? All he gives me is rules. It's like, how am I gonna trust you, or how am I gonna trust Carlos? Because Carlos could give me all the Bible verses, but it's like if I come up to him with the real problem of, hey, man, I'm struggling with Drake. Yeah. It's like, well, read your Bible. What does the Bible say about this?
What does your Bible say about this?
It's like, well,
he struggles with girls.
Shut up. And it's okay. And if we're being honest,
okay,
I think
girls, I mean, like that. What you're saying is true, because like when new people come into the church, they're coming in like with all this struggle. Like you gotta let them know that you're going through the struggle too. Like it's not everyone is in the same fight. We're all in the same fight. We're all going through the same struggle. We're all going through this journey in our relationship with God, where we mess up, we fail. We're human beings. When I used to go to church, when I first went into church, I thought when I first went to a church, I saw the youth leader and I thought he was, man, this guy is closer to God than like holy, and they were never open to me about their relationship with God. But if I would have met you and you would have talked about all this, I would have been like, man, like I can, if he's dealing with it and he's overcoming it and he's struggling, but he's still persevering and still being persistent.
Like he's open,
then,
like he's literally open.
Yeah,
like our jeans.
yeah, like open like our jeans.
Well,
Then
see, because if you look at mine, a lot of like Christianity people, that's how we are.
yeah.
Like, I'm only gonna show you my knee, but only like a little bit. Like
Yeah.
I don't wanna show you all of it. I look at yours and it's like,
See, you gotta
bro,
give me
you're
to
all
that
like,
level.
oh,
You
no,
gotta,
es que
see,
vamos
you
vamos
gotta
de
give me to
chiquito,
that
mediano
level
y
where you
grandote.
kill me. You know, like right now, like I
you're
want to
like
be right
showing
now.
it, like, which is cool, but that it goes back to
I can see that knee bone.
how long did it take for that relationship to actually be honest? Like, you know, me and David, I met him whenever, you know, he was young. So we started talking and I connected with him. So with him, I built a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, he could call me anytime and I could tell him, hey, I'm a phone call away. Like anytime you feel something or anything, call me. And there's other people that I tell them the same thing. I'm like, I'd rather be a help for you because nobody was there for me like that.
Exactly.
And that's where I go back to where like, man, I wish our older generation had that mindset of instead of them giving us rules to follow, it was like, hey Martin, man, what could I do for you? How could I serve you? Because that way I could be honest, hey man, you know what, I'm struggling with alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't drink, but I'm struggling with alcohol. But okay, well look, maybe let's do something like this. But if you real quick to, hey, well John 3:16 said, for God so loved the world, man, that person's gonna be like, why did I go to him?
Yeah.
Just like as a side note or a small comment, I really like what you said, and I've always tried to follow that advice. I don't like being by myself because I don't trust myself. So everywhere I go or anything I try to do, I always try to be with any of these guys or my brothers.
And that's the thing. It's in Christianity and church overall. Like we need to have accountable. We need to have people that are accountable for us. Like I know I have my pastors like my dad, but I also could be honest with him and say, hey, I'm struggling with this because you know this and this. I'm married, but I still have struggles. Like there's moments where I don't want to go to church, but it's something that we're not honest about because we feel like, oh my Lord, like the rule is I have to be there on,
people are gonna judge you.
yeah, like I have to be there on Wednesday. I have to be there on this day. I have to be there on that day. But it's like I'm starting to get to that point to where like, man, like I need to worry about myself first and like the relationships I have with people over other rules because then rules are gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Like when we're speaking spiritually, like rules kill like somebody that's young. Like and that's what I'm big on. Like I'll tell my people, like, hey man, why do Hispanic churches, and I don't want to get off topic, but why is it that Hispanic churches, once you hit 18, like you lose them? And I tell young people that, why is it that? And they're like, well, it's because like there's so many rules. But then they go to different churches. Like I know that there's a church here in Houston. They're big, and I love their vision. But if you look at their people that are there, they're pretty much all Hispanic young people. And I'm like, what are we doing as pastors or leaders to keep them inside of our church? But it's like, I don't have a relationship with you, so I'm going to go find somebody to have a relationship with, or somebody that isn't judging me to where like, man, well, he struggles with girls. Not that he struggles with girls, but
No sabe qué hacer con ellas.
yeah, or like, you know,
Can you please talk to him about that?
hey, but it's true. It's
I'm
Can you
open.
pray for him in the corner?
I am open too, and it's like, but it goes back to like we lose people because of rules.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
We lose people because of, hey, the rule is this. Like you can't have, like we do our services.
You can't date a girl in church. Like some
Like,
like that.
Yeah.
See, and I also like I know rules, so like I talk to our younger people. I say, hey, like if y'all gonna be talking to each other, like your parents need to be okay with it. I'm like, I'm not your dad, but I'm not gonna tell you what to do. But I am gonna worry about my youth group because like if you're building something, and then out of nowhere a little girl wants to date another boy, and then they break up, and now they don't talk to each other, and then now the whole group is all messed up.
Sounds familiar. I don't know why.
And you're like, dude, like everything we work for just went downhill because of that. So it's like, that's where I'm like, hey, I'm going to be more involved in your life. Even though I could be like, you could call me Metiche, you could call me nosy, but I'd rather be involved in your life. And at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, well, I tried. Because the thing is, sometimes we don't try.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Your
we're like,
experience.
yeah, we're real quick. Hey, Mark, like, let's go out. And you're like, no, I can't.
Y'all too?
Hey, let's go out. Like, let's go out to eat coffee. It doesn't work. He doesn't want to. Not eat coffee, bro.
but
drink
if-
coffee.
But if you tell them, let's go play
It's a
soccer.
new art.
It's a new art.
So like, for example, y'all know who Carlos is.
Who, this one?
Gomez?
Leiva.
Leva was
Leva.
here on podcast, what, 1 or 2?
4.
Second
Worst
one, I think.
four.
No, third one.
Worship
Third.
night.
He wasn't there.
Oh,
I
you
wasn't.
So with
He
him,
replaced him.
he comes around our church, and I didn't know who he was. But we started building a relationship. We would go out to eat, he started talking to me, and it was like, I'm like, okay, look. At the end of the day, I'm like, if he stays here at our church, I'm cool with it. If he doesn't, I'm still gonna be his friend. But it was like we started talking, and I started realizing, and somebody brought it up to my attention. They were like, hey, like that's what we need for everybody here, not only for Carlos but for everybody. It's like they need to see you as like a friend, somebody that they could like build something with, because then they're gonna start respecting you as pastors because or leaders. But that's where we fall into the rule. Is like, hey, that's Pastor Rudy, so you know his voice changes, it gets deeper. It's like when you preach, you preach different, and you demand for them to respect you.
Yes,
but it's like you don't have a relationship with them.
Amen, mis hermanos.
So
Amen, mis hermanos.
I don't know, but that's really good, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
¿Ya te desahogaste, Rudy?
Huh?
Déjame
No,
verlo.
that what?
He was at the good point. He had
Yeah,
a
no,
good
he
point.
had a good
brought
point.
it back. You brought it back home.
You saved it. But it's
He
true,
saved
man.
it.
I'm what you brought up is so true. Is like even for you guys, like all this, people are gonna criticize you. It's like, why are y'all doing a podcast? What's the point of bringing guests that aren't part of our churches or they don't know what they're saying? But it's y'all saying, hey, you know what? Like we're not gonna set rules. Like this is gonna be an open conversation, and that's how you guys are gonna get followers. Because then if not, if you guys were only by this rule, like we're only gonna talk about this topic, people would be like, well, I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like people like this topic rules. People don't like this, especially Hispanic churches, because like, man, you're like messing with all the things that they believe in. But I'm like, but when did Jesus have rules? Like, when did he say I can't hang out with this person or I can't like sports? I'm big on sports, and there's people that have told me, well, where did you see the disciples play sports? What? It's like,
and then it's not a necessarily thing that, your church has rules. You're not right. You know, you shouldn't have rules. No, you know, we're not also saying that. You know, if you decide to have rules, hey, that's your thing. You know, if you feel like that's the correct way to go, that's your thing.
No,
you
I mean,
know?
yeah, and that's what we said. Like you obey those rules, like
right. And everybody has different ways to do things. You know,
it's a matter of preference.
When you got criticized, was it the fanatismo? Like, no puedes fanatismo.
well, because David did a show, I did a show. My dad, we were in a sports show. So people would call the sports show and be like, hey, when did you see disciples be talking about sports? And there's people dying and going to hell. So it was like, I was young back then. So you'd be like, well, see, that's the kind of people that I don't understand. Like, how are we going to reach other people? But they want to be talking about, you know, you're not reaching this because you're talking about sports. But then maybe you might have that one person that likes sports and you're able to talk to them. Hey, man, let's go watch a basketball game. And it's like, well, we go to a basketball game. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. You know, like I'm going through this. And that right there for them is probably like means everything.
So what you're saying is like not only build relationships in church, but even outside of church, even as go as far as sports in general.
Like I'm big on that. Like I'm one of those guys to where, like if I know that Carlos plays basketball, which I know he doesn't, but
Oh, really?
I can see it. But
he plays tennis.
I used to.
but if he tells me, hey, I'm in a basketball team, like
You'd be like, boy, why are you lying?
no, I would go watch you. Like there's a girl at there's a person at our church that they were part of band, and one day I text his dad and his mom. I'm like, hey, what time is the band performance, the halftime show? They're like, oh, it's this time.
Yeah.
I was at church, they were cleaning, and I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'll be back. I'm gonna go watch him. I show up, his parents weren't there, and he saw me, and he was like, he got home and he told his mom, man, Pastor Wally was there. And those are the moments to where I'm like, that's what I want people to remember me as. Like, not only as I was a pastor that was there giving them rules, but also did life with them. Like, I'm big on that, especially if you're in like leadership, is getting out of your comfort zone. Like if at church, and your church, you guys have people that play soccer, then go watch them play one day, because that right there is gonna mean the world to them. To where it's like,
but sometimes,
family, like
sometimes that attitude comes in that where, nah, I don't got time, man. I don't want to go watch this person. Like I don't even like the sport. Hey, but you're not doing it because you like it or not. You're doing it because you're gonna build that relationship. You want to build that relationship. You want to be connected to these people. And it's sometimes you gotta set yourself aside to be able to,
Yeah, because once you build that, then whenever they do mess up, you have the more of a right to tell them, hey, like quit doing that, because they start seeing you more as, okay, he's Like he's at my games. He
Cares
cares
for me, yeah.
Yeah. So now,
Even though I'm losing, he's still
yeah,
in the game.
because like for
He's
us,
glad.
23-0.
like the way
He's
we
only
have
there
our
to
youth
eat and
leadership
drink,
is like each leader has a certain amount of people under them. So like, you know, for example, I have 3 young adults. So my responsibility is to text him, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go eat wings or let's go to a basketball game. And it's building the relationship outside of church because then it's going to be easier to build it inside of church. So it's like, hey, like if I know he likes sports, he's a football fan. If the Steelers come, is hey, let's go watch the game. You know, I'm not even gonna talk to him about Bible or church or anything. It's just more, hey, let's go watch a game, and then after that we could go eat. You start talking to them, then they kind of start seeing, oh, well, he actually cares about me. And you're not caring for the person for benefits because there's really not a benefit at the end. You know, if he says, hey, I'm leaving the church, but at least he's gonna have that in his head to where like, man, Pastor Wally or, you know, Martin went out with me, hung out with me, did life with me, not only inside of church, but also outside of church.
And it's good to have that because a lot of churches don't have where you can fellowship with, you know, people outside of the church. There's always Bible studies, you know, always go to church. But then when they want to have fun and go out and watch a game, they go out with someone who's not Christian. They drift them away. Like bad company corrupts good morals. So it's good to have people who have vision, who are close to God because you get their vibes, you get more connected with them. You get sharper. Iron sharpens iron. But even if you're not talking about God or anything, as long as you're not and like nothing bad, you know, like you can get tempted. Someone might text you, say, hey, you know, like let's go watch a game, and they might have beer and they might tempt you there. So
Like if you don't talk about God,
yeah,
as long as you have those godly
you have
characteristics.
to have, you have to go with them, fellowship with them, because and then if the world's gonna win them, you know, if you don't fellowship with them and you don't grow with them and you don't be with them on on life, then the world is gonna take them away from the church, you know, because they wanna watch a soccer game, they wanna go to a basketball game, but if they don't have no one in the church who is open to that, who's willing to do that, then they're just gonna drift from the relationship with God because they want to do life too.
And for some reason, this reminds me of the story when Jesus met Peter. I think it was Peter. Like we all look at Carlos. No.
Is that the right story?
When he went, right story? I think it was the one when Jesus.
Let him talk, and I'll tell you.
When he was he borrowed someone's boat and no habían pescado todo el día. They weren't getting any fish, and then later on, Jesus had to say what they had to say, and then he told, tirar la red otra vez, like, oh, well, we haven't gotten anything, but you know what? Because you say it, I'm going to go ahead and do it, and they got all that fish. But my point is that Jesus didn't have to do that to prove, that what he could do. But yet, in a way, he decided to do what Peter was doing, which was fishing. So in a way, he wanted to be part of that, what he was doing, so también uno as leader, we can go ahead and be part of the youth.
That's
youth
why
life.
Jesus called Peter fisher of men, because he was so they could be,
and one thing that I really like because I follow y'all's pages, and I really like is that small things like y'all give shout outs to for birthdays to y'all post the pictures of the youth, and that's pretty cool, man.
See, and it's funny because they just told me that a week ago, like, why do y'all do that? And there was a moment where I'm like, well, maybe we're gonna take it off. But then also there's also that, like, it makes them feel important. Dude. But it goes back to why do we do it? Is because we want that person to feel like, man, like they really care about me. But like what you were just talking about, it's like I had a old friend of mine he was upset at me. Like, why don't you ever talk to me? And why do you talk to new people? Like, why do you have new friends? But it goes back to the conversation of we don't always have to talk about church, but if I know what your dream is, like if I know your dream is to be, like for you, an IT guy, and your dream is to one day get to Apple or whatever, it's, hey, how could I help you like reach that level? Or like, for me, it's like I want to become a senior pastor one day. So I need to hang out with people that are going to push me to be better, even though we don't talk about church, but it's also like, hey, well, how could I help you with social media? How could I help you with videos, graphics, and all that stuff to be able to take you to to another level. So it's important to where it's like it's not always about like Bible stuff, but it's like,
That's why I
hey,
hang out with that.
how could I push you to be better?
Hang out with
And how could I push, your dream to be better? And people that actually care about your dreams
Yeah.
are people that are gonna push you to be better. But
Yeah.
if you have people that are just like, oh, I want to become a senior pastor, or you're not ready. But yeah, but who said I'm not ready? Oh, well, I said you're not ready. But who are you? Like, it's like if I don't have that relationship with you, I'm not gonna.
Wasn't Peter with somebody else cuando tiró la red?
Yeah, he was. But,
Yeah.
He was with somebody else, right? So what I want to add with that is when Peter was with somebody else, it was like, what if they got stuck with the red? What if they didn't throw it away for the fish? What if they just kept it? What if they didn't even have that confidence to throw that red? But given the word, they threw the red because they were confident. It was like, okay, they're gonna be fish coming from this. Fish came out like a bunch of them. Boom! It could have even broke. So what I'm trying to say is that.
I think it did.
So what I'm trying to say is that it was like both of them, they worked together, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like both of them in the same state of mind, they built a relationship. Them knowing like, okay, because throwing the red is like it has to be a teamwork. Teamwork you have to
makes the dream work.
yeah, that. I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of
Commercial.
Coca-Cola, please.
Edit that out.
We just need to have jingle behind it.
A Super Bowl commercial, please.
Shame.
Where the
Strike two.
where dreams come true or what?
One more strike.
Wait, that's what's that? Disneyland? I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I say is that they work together. It was like they know each other. They're gonna throw it at the
Yeah.
same time. So it's like the same thing. Iron sharpens iron. Having a relationship with them. You know how they work, and we all work together to really build each other up.
Jesus used Peter's profession to build that relationship between
Oh,
them two.
let's go. Can we get the piano in the background? but it is true. It's like this podcast. It must have been like one person think about it, and they shared it with everybody. And it was like, hey, how are we gonna make this happen? Because you by yourself, you couldn't be editing stuff. You couldn't be doing this. It had to be like, oh shoot, let's all work together. But it's making sure that the people around you follow the same vision. Because imagine if you're thinking of, well, I want my podcast to be like this, and then they start giving you rules. Well, no, but hey, I need to talk like this. This topic needs to be this. It kind of just takes everything off. But it's like, since you guys have a relationship, it's easier because it works. Because like, hey, I follow your vision, your dream. You're gonna push his, and it's gonna help each other out. And in the middle of it, you're gonna be like, oh man, like we took the risk, but it was a risk of more than one person. Sometimes you take a risk by one person, and you fall, and it's like, who's gonna get you back up? So it's like, man, it's really good. I like that. That's a good, man. Can you
Might
say
as
it
well
again, bro?
preach,
So
man.
for when I preach.
You can see it in the video. Subscribe.
All right, so that's pretty much it for us, guys.
I'm hungry, man.
You're hungry. Our food pretty much got cold, but that's fine. We got some good information from everybody. Do you want to put a plug in about Real Love? Like what day is the event and all that?
Yeah, let me give you the dates in case.
The right dates.
Yeah, because David gave it to y'all.
David gave the wrong date on the last podcast.
So
we're
Real
sorry
Love
about that.
this year is gonna be October 18th and 19th. It's gonna be in Houston. We're already working on guest speakers, worship bands, and that's something too where anybody that wants to volunteer to help out, it's open. I'm open on any other churches that want to help out. So if you hear this and y'all want to reach out, there's realloveconference@gmail.com. You guys could follow us there on Instagram. We already have an Instagram. Nothing's posted yet, but it's Real Love Conference. So, if you want to volunteer this year, we need photographers. We need people to take videos. We need people at the doors. We need people to help us with merchandise. So the idea is for Real Love to grow big.
Go for a few years.
Let me be in
years
charge
to
of the
come.
merchandise.
$10
I'll
shirt.
give the money.
You're good at math, so
I mean,
just
he's
don't
an
give them the
engineer.
wrong change.
So guys, for who was ever watching, thank you for watching. Thank you, Youth Pastor Wally
P.
or
Wally.
P. Wally.
Nah, man, thank you for having me.
But yeah, thanks for coming.
Hopefully it's not the last.
yeah,
last time.
yeah,
so.
we're for sure hoping you come
Maybe
again.
next time you and David can come together.
Oh yeah. Anytime you guys want us, me and David are open.
Yeah.
Shout out to our
Or
guys.
you and your wife, if you like.
Yeah, shout out to my wife Priscilla. I haven't mentioned her, and I have to mention her before I get in trouble. So shout out to my wife Priscilla. Si no me regañan. So.
She's like, tell him you're married.
She's gonna be like, you've been married for 8 years, so you better mention my name. Nah, so I've been married for 8 years. I got married super young.
I mean, if you round it, it's 10 years.
So Oh, nah. Not yet.
Not yet. All right.
That's that in 2 more years. So, yeah, I got married young. Got married she was first out of high school. I was already in my 20-something. So, it was like, I'm 30 now. But
So
it's
you were
like,
22 or what?
yeah, 22. Yeah, I'm doing my math. I'm like, yeah, 22. So yeah,
Alright,
shout out to
thank
my
you.
wife. But anytime you guys want us to do something with you guys, I know David's available.
Yeah.
Y'all need to have Steph. She's our worship leader at our church. She's bad. Leva. Carlos is there.
TFT.
The acoustic worship night that I heard about it on one of the podcasts. He's there. So yeah, it's cool, man. I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, like.
Well, thank you, Marty, for coming too.
I know. Thank
Nah,
you.
oh, and I love you, man. I love you.
I love you too.